What's up, Colorado Realtors? I'm Scott Peterson. Thank you for joining me for another quarantine edition of Legal Bites. Back here in my home office / studio. When I'm here, you know that we're still under quarantine because can't wait to get out of here. That door, somebody's going to open it one day and I'm going to be able to walk on out and I'll feel like a new man. I did update the wardrobe from Friday, the last version of Legal Bites, and actually got out of my bathrobe and showered up and dressed up. And I've had some comments from you that it's about time that I cut the hair. And I would agree. If you haven't heard, it's difficult to find a barber or anybody to cut hair right now. And so here you go. I read something funny that, in just a few short weeks, we are going to know definitively what everybody's true hair color actually is. No secret here. Mine is this. So anyhow, I wanted to reach out and update on just a handful of different topics, all specifically in one way or another related to what we're all working through right here, the COVID virus. So first thing I'm going to mention real quickly is remote notary. So the remote notary, the governor's executive order on remote notary was issued, I think it was Friday or maybe it was Saturday, just a few days ago. And it is now in effect. And what that effectively says is that they have suspended the requirement of in-person notarization for a period of 30 days, which could potentially be extended or the order renewed. But for the 30 days that we're in, a notary in the state of Colorado does not need to have a person appear in person in order to notarize a document. So that might help a little bit or a lot potentially with closings specifically. And we know notaries are a big component of any real estate transaction closing. And so the ability to be remote and take care of that remotely in connection with some of the technology the title companies are utilizing might make closings take place without having a group of people all gather up in a room and potentially expose each other to illnesses and what have you. So that is out there. The one caution I will mention, or I don't know if it's a caution, but particularly in this early transition phase, I have heard a couple of lenders specifically have not been willing to acknowledge, or the underwriting has not been willing to acknowledge remote notarization. And so if you're working on a transaction where the title company, first of all, coordinate with the title company. If the title company is going to be using remote notarization, then maybe do a double check with the buyer and buyer's lender or MLO to make sure that they don't have any issues with doing remote notarization for any of the documents related to the closing of the transaction. So be thinking about that a little bit out front, but hopefully that development will assist people in maintaining even greater social distances as we're in this super precarious time right now. Another point I want to bring up that I've heard as well is as it relates to appraisals. And I've actually had an appraiser reach out to me and say, hey, our clerk and recorder's office has gotten so far behind in terms of recordings and the certification of these recordings that the appraisers are feeling like they're not able to utilize totally current comps or comparables for the purposes of their property analysis. And so I'm not sure, there's not a lot you guys can do about that other than maybe, be thinking about that as you're setting appraisal deadlines within contracts right now. And, just a different issue that I might encourage you to be aware of or consult with your clients to be aware of as you're working through a transaction and engaging appraisers. And also maybe as you're working with a buyer who receives an appraisal, to figure out if there are appraisals that or comps that have been subsequently certified that weren't picked up for some reason. So it's just some things to think about as it relates to appraisals. I think I mentioned this last Friday. I'm not exactly sure at this point, but another thing that keeps coming up is this desire from you guys to have waivers and releases or release of liability, some clause or form or document that essentially shifts liability from you to your buyer or you to your seller. for the purposes of showing a property. So basically, hey, I'll show you this property, but there's this virus floating around out there, and so if you happen to get sick, you can't, you're going to hold me harmless. I'm getting a lot of requests for that, and I'll say it again. You're not going to see that document come from CAR because we can't promulgate it. I can help create disclaimers theoretically, as we have with our buyer and seller advisories that we did last year. But what you guys, I think, in large part are looking for is an actual, essentially a contract document. It waives or creates legal obligations between parties, and that would be an indemnification, a release of liability, some other liability waiver document. Any of those things, CAR simply can't create, and because we don't have an attorney-client relationship with all of our 28,000 members, and so it just doesn't work. And then people say, well, will the Division of Real Estate do that? And I can almost say 100% assuredly that they will not. Their charge primarily is to protect consumers, and what those documents essentially do is shift liability to a consumer. So for those of you that are looking for those documents, or your brokerage firms that are looking for those documents, I would say that it probably makes the most sense to have your employing broker or brokerage firm, or you yourself, engage your own attorney, who could certainly create a document like that, or potentially a clause that would go into your exclusive right to buy or exclusive right to sell agreement that might accomplish some of what you're looking for in terms of shifting liability away from yourself for the purposes of the transaction. My own personal commentary on those kinds of forms or clauses, if you're undertaking or engaging in activities where you feel such a heightened sense of potential liability that you want to try and apportion that liability elsewhere away from you, you might want to consider whether you want to engage in that activity to begin with. And so I know we're an essential service or critical business. I understand all that, and there's no question that applies to you. But as I've said many times before, please use that responsibly, and make sure you're not just taking advantage of that status or trying to carry on business as usual, because I just don't think anybody thinks that's appropriate at this exact point in time. So do keep that in mind. Another topic I want to mention real quickly is I've had a lot of calls on the CARES Act that was signed last Friday late by President Trump, and it's a whole, it's a $2 trillion stimulus bill, including a lot of things. But one of the unique components of that is creating eligibility for self-employed or independent contractors to actually obtain unemployment benefits. And so that is definitely the case. And so I've had a lot of people calling and saying, hey, what do I do? Where do I go? And I've been trying to get a good answer. I do know this, that the unemployment piece of this will all be administered, as unemployment benefits are generally, through the state of Colorado, or through each individual state for the residents of that state. And so I've been in fact, I'm here now at the Colorado Department of Labor and Employment's website, colorado.gov/CDLE. And that's where you're going to ultimately go to make application for those benefits. But even as of right now, if you're on their spreadsheet in terms of filing, it's under the if you're self-employed, an independent contractor, or a 1099 worker, it basically says, hey, you're potentially eligible for up to 39 weeks of expanded benefits, up to $600 per week on top of your regular benefits. But wait to file a pandemic unemployment assistance claim. Availability is coming soon. So ultimately, you're going to file for those benefits online through the colorado.gov/CDLE's website, and it pops right up. But at this point, because this was all just implemented late Friday, and I'm sure the state is working furiously with their software or IT folks to get the application portal up and going, it's just not up as of right now. And it's 4:00 in the afternoon on the 1st of April. But that's where you'll go, and ultimately they will determine your eligibility and process the benefits. And at this point, that's as much information as I have, for better or for worse. Next topic I want to hit on real quickly is Division of Real Estate renewals. Another order authorized the Division of Real Estate, or a couple of the divisions under Department of Regulatory Agencies, and one of those being the Division of Real Estate, to essentially give extensions for some period of time with respect to your license renewals. And that would also include, the expiration of your license and therefore your continuing education requirements. And what the division is doing right now is they're basically, if you're renewing in April, you're getting a notice from the Division of Real Estate saying, hey, this is your renewal notice, and they're extending it by 60 or 61 days, I think, for you to process that. So by virtue of that, you've got an extension for an extra 61 days, and you've got that same period of time to become compliant with any elective continuing education credits or 4-hour update courses or what have you. And a few weeks ago, they just basically said that they authorized a lot more web providers or online providers. So there's plenty of resources out there. If you guys need CE classes, plenty of resources online for you to get that. And some of you might even have a few extra minutes in your day to actually take care of some of that now. And so you do have that extension as your license is expiring in the month of April, and you'll be getting noticed from the Division of Real Estate about that. Last two things. Number one, quick announcement. Census. The census is out, and I'm not a commercial or anything, but please, I'm getting this from our government affairs folks. Apparently, Colorado at this point is like 30% compliant or responsive to the 2020 census. Please take the time to get that filled out. That has, the size and population of Colorado has so much to do with our representation, with a lot of funding, a lot of programs from the federal government that obviously we'd like for the state of Colorado to be the beneficiary of. And so the only way they can apportion some of that is by looking at the census. So please, if you got your census in the mail, get it filled out. You can go online. I hear it's very easy to do. My wife did it apparently a few days ago, and she was very happy about it. And but anyhow, it's not hard to do. Please do that. It's important for all of us Coloradans in the state. And then the last thing I'm going to mention is this coming Monday, April 6th, we're going to be hosting another webinar. And so I'm going to host a webinar, and it's going to be myself. I'm going to have Damian Cox, who's another attorney that I'm sure most of you are familiar with. And also Liz Peets, who's our Vice President of Government Affairs. And so Damien and I are going to do some more legal, do a little bit of presentation on the legal side of things. And then Liz is going to do a presentation on kind of the government affairs stuff. Hopefully by Monday, we'll have some additional guidance and directive from NAR or some other sources related to how to take advantage of the CARES Act. And so check out information for that. I'm sure we're going to be limited to 500 attendees, and the last one I did last week sold out. So at some point, I imagine tomorrow, we'll send out an invite or a registration. Get registered, and if you don't get registered or if it fills up, then we'll record the whole thing and it'll be released later that day or maybe the next morning on YouTube, and so you can see the whole thing anyhow. So anyhow, look at all that stuff that's out there. I hope everybody's staying healthy and taking care of each other and yourselves, and we will see you at some point, probably later this week, on another edition of Legal Bites. Thanks so much.